Carl Jung. Carl Gustav Jung was born July 26, 1875 in Kessel, Switzerland. He lived in Switzerland for the vast majority of his life, some of which is spent traveling across the globe. Jung passed away on June 6, 1961 in Küsnacht, Switzerland. Life and education. Carl Jung grew up in a religious lower-class household in Switzerland. Jung was a quiet child who regularly remained to himself. He was observant, paying close attention to adults, teachers, and peers. Carl's mother had various mental health issues which caused her to be hospitalized for long and frequent periods of time. As a result, Jung considered his mother to be an unreliable parent. In the early stage of Jung's education, his socioeconomic status motivated him to prioritize his schooling. His mother's seemingly bipolar personality inspired Jung to conduct religiously formulated rituals and attempt to contact the supernatural. In school, Jung became thoroughly interested in philosophy and science. Many of the men in Jung's family were clergymen who expected him to become a minister. Jung enrolled at the University of Basel in 1895, initially learning paleontology, archaeology, biology, and religion before deciding upon psychiatry. When Jung completed university in 1900, he moved to Zurich where he accompanied Eugen Bleuler at Burgholzer Psychiatric Hospital. By 1905, Jung had established himself as being well versed in his studies about the unconscious. With a recently earned medical degree and a job lecturing at the University of Zurich, Jung started to work alongside Bleuler in conducting tests that would reaffirm the writings of Sigmund Freud. Now a senior doctor at Burgholzer, Jung became close friends with Freud, sharing many of each other's research and writing. Early in his career, Jung was asked to edit the Yearbook of Psychoanalytical and Psychopathological Research in 1908, then followed up by his election as president of the International Psychoanalytical Association 2 years later. In 1912, Jung published his book, Psychology of the Unconscious. The book would ultimately dismantle his relationship with Freud, for it had continued to challenge Freud's ideas, something Jung had done previously. Jung resigned from the PAS in 1914. He continued to expand upon his education, spending some of his time traveling throughout the world. Jung for a short time worked at the Federal Polytechnical University in Zurich in 1933, and then as a professor of medical psychology at the University of Basel, until suffering a heart attack in 1943, which prompted him to quit. Theories and achievements. Jung has contributed a number of things through his research and writings. Jung's theory of human psyche, ego, personal unconscious, and collective unconscious, was one very important contribution to human psychology. In his analytical theory, he contributes the idea of archetypes, the persona, the shadow, the anima/animus, the self. However, one important element of Jung's theory that is used today in the modern application of psychology is his description of attitudes and how they could determine 8 personality traits, introversion and extroversion being the 2 main attitudes in Jung's theory. According to Jung, archetypes and symbols, which everyone subconsciously understands, that directly affect our perception of people, events, among other worldly things. Jung's psychoanalytical theory has also impacted how some teachers teach their students. In his writing, Jung describes 4 functions which outline how people prefer to learn. Many have inferred ideas of learning styles from Jung's theory which have helped some decide how to teach their students, many proposing that each student should be taught based on his or her learning style. Jung's work also contributed to the creation of the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator personality assessment, as well as David Kolb's learning style inventory. Works cited.